welcome to the Scannell Agenda. Today's date is November 14th, 2018. This is show number 95, entitled Florida Algae. So my wife and I want to move to Florida, and I want to work on this water quality. It's more than just a water quality issue with the algae. Port St. Lucie's having a tough time. Naples, Florida, other areas are having a tough time with environmental issues, you might say. So this is the type of work I do. So I'd like to go down there and work on that issue, Florida algae. The title of this project for me is just FLA. And it's Complex Systems Design. And for you Florida folks that don't know me, I'm kind of political. I've been put in the corner, and that has stuck. And it's not a nice thing, but I guess we'll have to work with it. So, being a political prisoner due to a DNA switch, the psych system, I've had trouble with that. And there's been a DNA switch. I've had trouble with that, but it might have kept me alive. And, you know, Massachusetts has a problem right now with our two-party system. I'm a Republican, but, you know, I've got a lot of liberal ideas, too. So I'm kind of middle of the road. But we here in Massachusetts have a lot of problems with political corruption. If you ever followed the stories here, you would know that. Okay, so I don't know where all the investigative reporters have gone, but I think we need more of that. If anyone wants to come up from Florida and investigate my character and my issues politically or any other issues, I have 8 different mental illness diagnoses. They just took one away, which was not my favorite one. Backpedaling, you might say. The psych people doing the little favors for the political people. And that one was paranoid schizophrenic. Well, I've never had the meds for any of this so-called diagnoses, and I never really have agreed to it, and I'm in really hot water. If you ever get into a fight with the cops or the sheriff, you're in hot water, because they stick together. The establishment right now is very, very pervasive and powerful. Okay, back to Florida. What I do here is, so that's first of all, I just want to let Florida know that I'm legitimate. I don't have mental disorders or any psychiatric conditions. This is all political, dirty tricks, you might say, from the dirty scoundrels who are the party people here in Massachusetts. That's both Republicans and Democrats. It's pretty nasty up here. So they could stick up for me, but I just don't rate. And I'm hoping, well, maybe if I go down there to Florida and I make some presentations and some people down in Florida say, we want to continue a workup of what I've got and what I work on, that would be good. So all this political corruption includes the corruption of the state police and the FBI here in Massachusetts. So it's a lot of trouble. It really would be a lot of trouble even to get it handled properly, which it should be. That would, if that happened, that would free me up to do this work and have some credibility. I hope to do my work, which is complex systems research and development. That's what I do. I design complex systems for the public trust, such as water systems. I think I did 5 or 6 shows or more on water systems, that is infrastructure systems. I have a strong interest in redesigning and re-engineering waterways, which is a no-no with the liberals, basically. They don't want anything touched or messed with. And I had a big fight about that. That was in Yankee Magazine, April 1992. If you read that, please, if you're in Florida. and report out on that. That was the nub of what happened with the DNA switch, with me getting thrown in jail so many times and put into a mental hospital. That was my life there was going to be over. But I got out. I fired the lawyer and I took the case, and it was a commitment hearing, and I got out. It was a miracle. So there's a big story there. Could be a movie, you might say. So I work on wind and wave systems, which have morphed into what I call a green grid transit system. And the green grid transit system could work down in Florida because it's a monorail system. Now the monorail system is very unique in that it's also an energy system, and it's also a utility system. So it's transportation, utilities such as gas and anything else you want to put in a pipe. And it's got a pod system with it. The pods are for people, and the pods are also for pallets. And then it's got another separate system, and that is for small packages and parcels. So you're looking at a major game changer if this system goes in worldwide. And I hope it does, because it carries hydrogen from offshore and oxygen-rich compressed air, because when you crack water into hydrogen and oxygen, of course, you get both, and they're both valuable. So the oxygen is mixed with compressed air. And then you've got straight compressed air, which can power refrigeration and air conditioning. Hello, Florida. You know, are you listening? Compressed air can power your needs for air conditioning and refrigeration. So that's huge for Florida. Here on the Cape Cod, we don't use too much air conditioning, a little bit in the summer, not too much. And of course, like everyone else in the country, we have the refrigerator to go to, and you plug it in, it plugs in electrically. Well, that would not change, but you don't need all that electricity. You need just a little bit if it's a compressed air system. See, instead of using the electricity to compress the fluids for refrigeration, you then use compressed air to do that. But you keep your electricity for the thermostat, for the light in the refrigerator. It's not a big draw. So I've been saying on one show, one of the last shows, that we need a consortium to handle the future. In this case, for Florida, it would be the future of the monorail, which carries salt and fresh water, which carries enriched salt water back out to the ocean from whence it came, and then to the reef areas and out to the wild ocean. Now that's very important that you in Florida get the concept that on both coasts your nutrients are piling up right at the shoreline, and the Gulf of Mexico is actually quite a bit in trouble, as we all know. And then Port St. Lucie is in trouble with algae. So this is Florida algae, fish kills, etc. So we have nutrients that are stacked up by the nearshore waters, the littoral area, the longshore. And this is a pretty tough, resilient area, but it isn't that tough that it can take all these nutrients. So we want to help out here with good water systems, and that is saltwater systems, working with freshwater systems, potable, etc., drainage, all kinds of water systems. And then, of course, sanitation systems. I designed sanitation systems that can work for Florida or Massachusetts or anywhere else in the world. And these are systems that are home appliances that use our bioproducts of number 1 and number 2, urine and fecal matter. And they're the way to go in the future. I think piping using sewage-based, old sewage thinking, where we pipe to a sewage plant, a treatment plant. And one of the problems, and there are many, but one of the problems with these types of plants is that even with secondary treatment, it's pretty good. You would have chemicals going back, let's say, discharged into the water table, which come from your local pharmacy. Around here, we call it the CVS, you know. And these are endocrine disruptors that actually will ruin the fishing and ruin the fish, even in trace amounts. So actually what we need to be thinking is one of our old sins, which was pollution, the dissolution solution. In other words, if you dissolve everything in the ocean, that's the solution to any pollution we have. Well, that's what we need to use, that philosophy, with the good nutrients that we produce. But we don't want to do it in an irresponsible way. We want to be very responsible, such that we are enhancing fisheries and aquaculture. So anytime I design a system, I look, and especially for Florida, I can see huge potential with the aquaculture. I used to work at the Marine Lab on Nantucket, and we produced these scallops here, these beautiful bay scallops. So I remember when I was a fisherman down there in Cape Canaveral, and went around from Tampa and went into Cape Canaveral, and we did some shrimping, and we were fishing for the rock shrimp, and it was a 20-day trip, my longest trip on any boat ever. And so anyway, the habitat for the shrimp, the aquaculture for the shrimp, the water quality for the shrimp, the fisheries management for the shrimp, all of this comes together with my projects that I do, with this project in particular, the Florida project. It's a complex system design. Now, please do investigate persecution of me, and you know, me as a political prisoner. And start with that Yankee article, Yankee Magazine, and then go from there and interview me. I'm pretty much shut off up here and shut down, and I don't like it. I really need to make an impact, and my work is important, and it's pretty good. Incidentally, my dad used to do this kind of work too, and he was really good. And they all know that, but they'd rather just protect the people that did the DNA switch, and there were a lot of them, wasn't just one person. But that's a gotcha. If we do a DNA test and it comes out the way I say it's going to come out, that means gotcha. Then I'll be listened to a little bit more than nothing, okay? And that's important, because the FBI can't win. If the FBI is working with the state police and they're corrupt as all hell here in Massachusetts, the rest of the country wants to know this. And if we have corrupt Massachusetts administrations here, we don't want them getting bumped up into the White House. We don't want more of that in this country. And we've been suffering with a lot of that in this country, as we all know. Well, we don't all know that. A lot of people are fine with the way things are going. And if you can believe that, they're happy. All right, let me get into some of these older projects that I've got with Florida here. Florida Dish on Rails, this is called. And it's a project to bring in salt water using tourism, believe it or not. This is good cranberry juice that my wife and I love. Keeps us healthy. So, this big boat, you might call it a big boat, but it's on a track. It goes out to the big, it goes out to get good, fresh, clean salt water, and it can use a pipe and bring it in too. But the purposes would be to have a big tourism draw. The boat would be on a track and it would just go around. And this would be ballasted. It would, as I have it designed here, it's got 2 billion gallon tank, which isn't huge, you know. It's not as big as a pond, but it's big enough. And then it's got a ballasted section below, or it hooks into such a ballasted system, and then it's a water lift. And so it gets the salt water up just high enough to get it into a situation where it's about 30 to 40 feet higher than the water table in central Florida. Okay? That's where I have designed a central backbone of saltwater, seawater for Florida. Now, as I'm doing this Florida work, I'm also continuing my work on something I call a green grid transit. So I've got a lot of projects going on, but this is on my front burner, this Florida project. And Pam's dad, World War II veteran, is down there in Port St. Lucie, and we're trying to move down there. But I wouldn't mind being introduced to someone with credibility, not someone with 8 different mental illnesses who nobody likes around here because I'm squawking about a DNA test, which is the key to the native rights on Nantucket, to unlock that box and put those native rights back where they belong on Nantucket. I'm still fighting on that issue. That's the nub of it right there. But you have to read that Yankee magazine, April 1992. It's called The Ditch That Divided Nantucket. So anyway, here is a green grid transit system. It's called, it's a pipe pattern. It has the 2 trains that are on a dovetail track. It's got a section for 2 pods, north and south, let's say 2 tracks, and then 2 pods, north and south, and then 2 box delivery conduits. And these are all be, I thought pneumatics was the key, but it isn't. You got to have little electrically driven robots that deliver things. And then you've got all kinds of pipes that, as I said, they carry everything. They carry compressed air, hydrogen, and oxygen-rich compressed air. And they carry those in several different grades or different strengths. Of course, all the pipes wouldn't have the highly charged compressed air, but some of them, or maybe 1 or 2 here and there, would. And hydrogen will probably be at low pressures, and you'll have a storm water pipe or pipes that you can load with storm water, and you'll mitigate against floods. You'll actually prevent quite a few floods with this system because you'll have the pipage and the horsepower, the compressed air horsepower, or electrical and or, to move the water. So with global warming, and I think we do have global warming, I know we do, that means we've got the global climate changes, or global weirding, as people call it. Sounds kind of weird, but it's true. We have global temperature changes, global climate changes, weather pattern changes. It's all right in front of us. And, you know, I knew this was true when I was a kid. It's been progressing incrementally. So I am a Republican, but I don't go for that barking like a dog about, you know, oh, it's a hoax. It's a hoax. Roof, roof, roof. It's not a hoax. It's ridiculous to say it's a hoax. I think it's utterly absurd to say it's a hoax. Global warming. That doesn't mean I'm a Democrat, and I'm glad I voted for Donald Trump, but it's not a hoax. And this is work having to do with solving the energy crisis, which I claim that putting hydrogen in a pipe and then transporting that stored hydrogen from a pipe to your home or your factory, that solves the energy crisis. It's green energy storage and green energy transportation, those 2 things. If you can achieve that, which we have achieved that with the green grid transit system, that does solve the energy crisis if we build it, and if we could build it, and I think we can. All right. moving on here, the Florida systems, these are big marl diggers and conveyors, and how to cut into the marl and move it and get it out of there. Now, if we're going to have salt ponds inland and a central backbone of salt, not necessarily right down the middle of Florida, I would say it would favor the East Coast Atlantic side, 25 to 40 miles inland from the beach, that is, from the barrier beach outside. Somewhere in that area. It would have to be mapped out. So there's all kinds of ways of doing that. But what you really want to think about is all the money that's going to come from the increase in tourism from doing this, and aquaculture and fisheries. With my fisheries systems, it's not like we have a few special fishermen. I don't go for that. I never have since I was 18. We have equal opportunity in fisheries, and it's a pay-to-play or a poundage-based tax for the shrimp or the lobster or fish or what have you. And there's a lot attached to that, but it is simple. We have horrendous scandals on fisheries here, and we continue to ruin the habitat. It's a crying shame. And have an equal, we just shrug our shoulders at equal opportunity in fisheries. Like, oh, we don't need that. We don't need equal opportunity in fisheries management. We have a few special people, and those people do us no favors, and we have no codfish here in the Northeast. And fisheries are just, they're ruined because of all this nonsense. So, the yacht locks, as I call them, for the interior salt ponds, which would be connected by raised aqueducts of a saltwater nature. They could be used in a pinch for fresh water. Just pull the plug, use them for fresh water if you wanted to. So they'll carry salt or fresh. So this would come with a lot of research and development, and that would be a tourist draw, actually, to just get this project off the ground. People would come from around the world. When this project takes shape, you'll have museums to look at all the different research and development going on before we green light this project, this Florida Crystal River project, maybe, you might say. Clearwater project. I like Crystal River because my wife and I want to move there to Crystal River. So you could take a train ride through Project Town. I know that's grandiose, it is. But this is one of the biggest projects known to man because it does solve the energy crisis. And it's called the Green Grid Transit System, of which all this stuff tags onto that. It plugs into that. I wouldn't have this if I didn't have that, if you know what I mean. Here we have a paddle train to move water. Inland, again, it's got some tourism attached to it, and it's got a, let's say, a canal with a big, huge train that goes over the canal, and the train is probably 3 miles long, and it moves all this water up and over the hump into, let's say, I want to say 30 to 40 feet higher than your water table, let's say in the Kissimmee River. But I'm just groping on that one. I'm not sure how high the water level should be, but it's got to be higher because you've got to have that flush. And the purpose of the salt water is multiple. It's tourism. Property values will go up significantly with these designs. Because let's say if you have a 2-mile long salt pond and it's half a mile wide, just for instance, a very modest salt pond, and you've got condominiums all around that, and it's raised, then what you're looking at is huge real estate values. Very good. 2 minutes to go. Huge real estate increases. Of course, it costs money to build this stuff, of course. You know. But in the 2 minutes I've got, the real estate's probably the biggest. The tourism and the real estate together are the biggest, because you can't lose your tourism to these algae blooms and fish kills. you can't do a lot of things. In other words, you can't just watch this stuff that's just happening. Like Harwich is just watching Red River Beach go downhill with the codium. I just did a show on that. There's nothing but codium. It's an invasive species taking over. So, you know, all the way through, we have all these floating marine laboratories and also, let's say, hatcheries for shrimp, for fish, for shellfish of the world. It wouldn't have to be just what's natural to Florida. I mean, we could raise anything with the technologies that are coming around. We can raise anything. And I have a minute left here. And in that minute, I want to say, this is what I do. I'm not the mental patient that Massachusetts needs to save its corrupt people and the rich. Where did Hillary go? Where did Donald Trump go? When Nantucket rich people said, come here, they came here to Nantucket. I'm on the Cape, but I used to live out there for many years. They are calling the shots, and it is an oligarchy situation. We don't want that in this country. In fact, a mussel bed can die a natural death, and it'll be left with just a ring of mussels, and that's what's going to happen to this country. If my prediction is right, we're going to die off in this country if we let the rich people take over here. And it's a natural thing. It happened, I think, in Greece with all that trouble. All right. Thanks for watching the Scannell Agenda.